Hello and welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm Ed Raby, a former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and join the Rabyd Nation if you want to learn more about our mission to normalize atheism and deconversion and how to support that. Stay tuned to the end of the video to learn more. Today I want to talk about the three biggest lies apologists tell about atheists. I've heard all three of these this week, so I felt it was a good topic to address. And I want to talk about what the lie is, what the motive behind it is, and hopefully that'll clear things up. And maybe even tell you what the truth is about atheists instead. So, lie number one, atheists think that they are God. Now, I think this is an easy one to get past because all you really have to do is compare the standard attributes for gods or God in general, like the omni-God. I certainly don't feel that I'm all powerful. In fact, quite the opposite. I'm regularly astounded about how little I have power over, and my stoicism causes me to focus on that which I can actually control, and that's actually become a smaller and smaller thing. There's certain things I can control, some things I can influence but not control, and there are many, many, many things beyond my control, so I don't have power to do a lot about them. I certainly don't have the knowledge. I'm not omniscient. I'm not everywhere present. And while I work on being a good person, I certainly am not omnibenevolent. I'm certainly not all loving. I've got things to work on. So all of that, if those are your qualities for God, then no, I don't qualify at all. And because I don't believe in God, why would I think I am one? This has got to be one of the most bold-faced propaganda lies I hear. Whenever I hear somebody doing it, that's pure grade A propaganda move against atheists. Atheists don't believe they're a God, okay? They just don't. They don't believe in God, so why would they believe that they are one? That's just kind of a real interesting, very flawed argument to even put that out and forward. It's straight out designed to cast the atheist as proud and arrogant by giving them a quality that they actually don't have. Okay, and I think that's the motive. Every time I hear this lie, it's usually somebody trying to propagandize against atheists. What do I really believe? I don't believe there are any gods, I suppose. I just don't find the evidence convincing for them. Because of that, I believe I am a human being on a speck of dust traveling through the universe trying to make the best of life that I can with my fellow humans and trying to live my life to the fullest and enjoy it as much as possible while at the same time doing some good. And that's pretty much it. So this is pure grade A propaganda, probably one of the worst lies that I hear apologists tell. Lie number two, the evidence doesn't matter to the atheist. That's really kind of funny when you really think about it, because it's the lack of evidence that made me become an atheist. The evidence is so significant for me that it's the lack of any evidence for any religious claims that made me reject them all, okay? To me, the whole assessment was about the evidence, and it came up short that the evidence for many of, pretty much all religious claims is lacking. It doesn't have sufficiency. It doesn't have, there's just nothing there. It's the lack of evidence for any of these religious claims that caused me to reject them. Evidence is very central to me being an atheist, okay, because it's about why I reject atheists, I reject all the theists. I think partially the motive for this lie is the frustration, and I used to feel this frustration too as an apologist and as a Christian when people didn't accept what I thought was good evidence. And what it really pointed to is my own emotional reaction to, I think this is good evidence, but the atheist rejects it, so therefore I have to cast them. I have to engage in some sort of poisoning a well against them. They must be stubborn. They must think they're God. It's me coming up with dumb reasons of why they don't accept my evidence. And it leads people to come up with the lie to justify their own low standards of evidence instead of motivating themselves to either meet those higher standards or perhaps consider that their own standards of evidence are faulty and perhaps they don't have as much evidence as they think. When you start to really deep dive, is there good reasons behind what you believe? a lot of people who have done that and still remain faithful to whatever religion will say, you're not going to like what you see, okay? Because a lot of the evidence that people use to justify their faith is very faulty and or isn't there, or they think it's there, but it's just not good. It's hearsay. You can dismiss it as wishful thinking. A lot of theists mix up claims and evidence. You have a claim, prove your claim with the evidence, and they just don't get that connection. And to me, I think this lie is more about justifying one's own belief and frustrations and actually engaging an atheist about the evidence. So it justifies people say, I'm not going to present evidence anymore. It justifies, like, I don't want to deal with it, I'm too afraid to deal with it. I don't really want to take a good deep dive as to whether my evidence is good. And so what do atheists really believe? For me, evidence is a key issue. I have openly put out that if somebody gives me historically verified evidence of a religious claim, if somebody were to put on the table stuff that could go into a court of law, do you have scientific evidence for your claim, something that's testable, repeatable? Like there's an experiment that proves your claim. I can take that experience, move it halfway around the world, have a scientist who has no connection redo the experiment and get the same results. Do you have that? Okay. And that's, I have standards of evidence, and yet they're not met, okay, by any religious claims so far. And there are other people that say, that my standards of evidence could probably be a little bit higher. And I say, sure, but at least that's a level where I'll start discussing and thinking about a religious claim. So the evidence is very important to me. It's just I have come to a better understanding by studying epistemology, by studying logic and reasoning, by studying what science uses as a standard of evidence, come to realize that a lot of things that apologists put out there as evidence is either really poor quality or in truth non-existent. So that's what I really stand for. Evidence is actually very important to me. In fact, it's the most important consideration that would cause me to be a theist again. So it's something that apologists should engage in instead of coming up with this lie as an excuse not to engage it. Lie number 3. Atheists purely for emotional reasons. I've heard that from Jordan Peterson. I've heard that from William Lane Craig. I've heard that from multiple people, that I'm just an atheist because I had some emotional trauma and I walked away from the faith. Well, even if that's true as one of the motivating, it can be one of the motivating factors, but it's not necessarily the only one. Why is it that we have to have this false idea that atheists are emotionless, okay, or anybody, does things that doesn't have an emotional reason behind it? We're all motivated by our emotions at times, and I would argue, why is it then okay for somebody like William Lane Craig to sit there and say, I'm going to lower the epistemological bar for Christianity because it doesn't really matter? Because what really matters is this inner witness of the Holy Spirit. Well, what is that witness of the Holy Spirit if not a feeling? I mean, people go into religion and stay in their religion for massive emotional reasons, and somehow that's okay. Why is it then not okay to walk away from religion or belief in God for emotional reasons? That would be my first objection to this lie. But the reason that makes it a lie is because it's not the only reason that people become atheists. When you actually ask an atheist why they think the claims of Christianity aren't good, they'll sit there and say what I just said. The evidence is poor. The reason, the logical arguments for the existence of God are fallacious. They will give you a whole list of stuff that has nothing to do with their emotional reasons for leaving faith. And so that's not necessarily true. There are definitely good rational reasons. There are good arguments against the existence of God, although they're not airtight, just like the arguments for the existence of God are poor, but I can't completely discard them. If they took a different vein and got rid of some of the faulty reasoning in them, I might reconsider them. But I was never able to do that myself as an apologist, so maybe somebody else out there is more big-brained and smart than me and can figure it out. But it doesn't change the fact that right at now, this moment, I remain an atheist because of the lack of evidence, a lack of good reasons to believe in God. It has nothing to do with my emotional reasons for leaving the church are long gone now. So why am I staying an atheist? It's not necessarily for emotion. And this false idea that this real black and white fallacy thing, that people do things for purely emotional reasons or purely rational reasons. And the fact is those two mix together all the time in all of our decision-making process. So it's really irrelevant, okay? If I left for emotional reasons and I also had good reasons to leave the faith, that would still mean I still have good reasons to leave the faith. So do some atheists leave for emotional reasons? Sure, I won't deny that. But most of them also have good rational reasons for leaving the faith. And I think this is a lie. Once again, this is a lie to develop an excuse as to why atheists exist from your standpoint. You know, I exist as a theist for emotional reasons, so therefore, you know, they have to exist because of emotional reasons. You know, to me, William Lane Craig's response to this question of the epistemological bar is very telling, that the reason he's still in the faith is he still believes he has this feeling of this witness of the Holy Spirit. And I would argue that it's a feeling no better or less than any other. There's tons of people in history that had this. My heart was strangely warmed. I just felt the presence of God. And it's all feelings. And that justifies you staying in the faith, you know, for myself, you know, because I wanted an eternal life to see my dad again and give him a hug, or this emotional attachment to my faith kept me in the faith. You know, the sunk cost fallacy emotional reason is a lot of reason why people stay in faith. So why is it okay to have that and not okay to walk away for emotional reasons? So what? Doesn't mean that there aren't also good rational reasons to walk away from the faith. And so this lie, I think it's motivated because they don't want to deal with the rational reasons why people become atheists, so they chalk it up to one thing, so then they don't have to really engage the rest of it. They can dismiss Christianity with by hand waving. I see Jordan Peterson do this all the time. Next week I'm going to actually react to him basically doing this. He's just hand waving. And, you know, spoiler alert, I guess. After the fact, too late, huh? But that just is it. Okay, it's just, this is a lie that is very self-motivated towards the people telling the lie, and it's very them projecting, okay, in a way, because they want to have an excuse as to why atheists become atheists, and it can't be rational, because I rationally still hold on to my faith. It's to believe I'm more rational than you. It's kind of saying I have knowledge and truth and reasoning better than you. And that's a really poor logical thing to do to people. It's a lying about the atheist. In truth, the atheist probably has a lot of reasons that they walked away from the faith, but that also includes rational ones, lack of evidence ones, as I pointed out before, a ton of other things. For me, it was realizing that my emotional attachment to my faith wasn't enough, okay, and I needed to find good reasons. In my particular case, I walked away from faith and my Christianity and then later on belief in God altogether at a very good time in my life. My kids were growing up, they were getting married. I had two of them get married, joyful times, good times. About the only real negative thing that had happened was my dog died during that period. But other than that, it didn't factor into anything as far as my faith. I had been rationally considering my faith for 7 years since I had become a Congregationalist pastor. I had the time and opportunity to really look at my faith and the questions of my faith and discover that there really wasn't any good evidence or good answers for these things, and practicing as a theologian. So it's a lie because it's just not true. Okay, there's a lot of reasons that people, but even if it was true, so what? Okay, you're keeping in your faith for emotional reasons. Why can't I leave the faith for emotional reasons? It doesn't seem to make any sense to me. You want one more? You want a fourth lie? Lie number 4, bonus lie. I have faith in there being no God. Okay, it often comes out like this. I don't have enough faith to believe that there's no God. Okay, and so I can't be like you. You atheists have too much faith in there being no God. And my response is, so you're saying faith is a bad thing? Having too much faith is a bad thing? That's my first objection to this idea. But it's more, I think it illustrates itself in a ridiculousness, because I hear people say this, those atheists have too much faith in I don't have enough faith to believe there's no God. Okay. Let me put it to you this way. So the reason that you don't believe in Odin, the All-Father, is that you have too much faith in Odin not being real. Okay. I don't have enough faith in Odin not being real, would be the way you would put it if somebody told you they believed in Odin. Okay, if somebody came up to you and said, I don't have enough faith to not believe that Odin, the All-Father, is real, you would, as a Christian, probably reject that idea, or an Islamic person, you reject that idea. Well, that's just a silly way to push it. Just substitute the word Odin with Allah or God, and you have the same argument, and it's just as silly. Okay? The real problem here, and the basis for this lie, is it's a lie based on projection of the idea if I have something, everybody else must have something. I have a white stuffed tiger, so everyone else must have a white stuffed tiger in their home. That is a good illustration of this fallacy. This is Cromwell. He's been a part of my life for, holy crap, 30 years. He doesn't do much except look down at me and pass judgment, so he's kind of an asshole. But that's the fallacy. Just substitute faith for white stuffed tiger and you get the same argument. I have faith, so everyone must have faith. Okay, that's the fallacy. Okay, and that's the problem with this whole line of reasoning and this fourth lie, this bonus lie for you. In truth, the atheist doesn't have faith at all. Okay, I don't believe in Odin. I don't believe in, although I like him as a character in mythology, I think he's a very interesting literary character and a very interesting character from a certain culture. Why they would create, such a, being as part of their mythology is very interesting to me. I love Norse mythology. Norse mythology is far more interesting than the mythology of the Bible, trust me. Kind of dull, actually. So I go after it in a different way. Okay, I don't believe in Yahweh. I don't believe that Jesus was the Son of God. I don't believe, you as a person don't believe in a lot of gods, and I would never come up to you and say, well, I don't have a faith enough to believe that that God doesn't exist. Okay, I would agree with you. We both don't have faith in those gods because we have good reasons. It's outside of our normal experiences. We don't have any good evidence to believe in those gods. And so we are fully justified not having faith in them. But somehow you have to build this special pleading wall around your own God, and that's the fallacy behind this lie that people tell. As an atheist, I don't have faith in all the 4,000 plus gods that have been created by human beings. I just don't have that. So those are the three lies that, three worst lies, I guess, that apologists tell about atheists, plus a bonus. But I think I'm probably going to go into a fifth one because somebody asked me about the basis of my morality. They asked me a lot of questions about morality. So it's been a while since I've done the moral discussion. And so I want to kind of lay it out here. I've got a few notes here hopefully I'll hit everything. I probably won't hit everything, but I'll hit the main pillars, I guess, of the basis of my morality, I guess. Though one of those beliefs is the first one, that all morality is subjective. I don't think there's such a thing as objective morality. I think objective morality is a myth. That would be my second point about it. But even if you have a God that gives a moral code, it's still subject to that God, and thus it's still subjective. In order for there to be an objective morality, and this is where a lot of apologists mix up the idea of objective and subjective, an objective morality would stand on its own, okay, without a God giving it, without a human being giving it. We'd be able to say, oh, therein lies this objective standard of morality that we have. But that doesn't exist, okay? If you look at Moses giving the Ten Commandments, even that's subjective to the God giving the Ten Commandments, okay? It's his opinion about what morality is. And when I look at the character of Yahweh in the Old Testament, particularly the Pentateuch, his laws are kind of shit at times. And he's got some stuff in there that I modern morality would reject. And it's because his morality is subjective to his opinion about what morality is. And obviously over time, even the character of Yahweh changes that morality over time. And especially if you're a Christian and you believe there's a major moral shift because of Jesus. So once again, the morality is subjective to the changing whims of God, so it's subjective. I don't think that objective morality exists. Okay. For instance, the person who asked the question, the idea of what is better is a subjective concept for a lot of reasons. One, we can always see things as in moral questions of how we can improve them, how we can make them better. But what does better mean? And is it the same for everybody else? No, it's completely subjective. What the idea of following a better path, being more virtuous, being more moral means to each person is subjective to that person. What we mean by that might be very different than somebody else's thing. And I'm just dealing with the reality of what is right now. Okay, I'm not even dealing with the question of how I came up with my own, because I think it's important to lay the foundation of what is, okay, and not necessarily talk about anything else. So I cast off objective morality. I realize that all morality is based in subjectivity, and us defining what better morality is a very subjective exercise, okay? There's also the idea that morality can be good for some, and you can follow a certain moral path, but in following that, you're bad for other people. You worsen something. So is that a good moral system that is beneficial for me, but harms other people? That's also a subjective comment, because the whole idea of benefit and harm is very subjective. The whole idea of values, some people value certain virtues, and other people don't give a crap about those virtues. They value other virtues. So it's a whole. What we value is a very subjective concept. You learn this if you take any kind of economics, that human beings value things differently from one standard to another. And so there's a subjective understanding of what is valuable. I mean, to some people, like there might be a comic book that is very valuable to them and they'd be paying $1,000. And other people who don't value comics would throw that into a burning barrel, okay, because they don't care. Okay, it's very subjective what is valuable, and that includes morality. My morality comes from, like all morality, from subjective goals that I have that leads to objective rules to protect and pursue those goals. I think morality as a society comes from this too. Let me give you an example. It's 4th of July, so let's talk about the Declaration of Independence, and it has a statement in there that all people are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, okay? Among these, the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Now, notice the way it's written, it's not an exhaustive list of rights, but he puts the top three. Jefferson and company put the top three being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are very subjective goals that we all want people to live. We all want people to have freedom and liberty to make their own choices, and we all want them to pursue their own happiness. So those are very subjective, because everybody's going to look at those three things and come up with some differences. Life is a little bit more concrete, but we do have arguments about when life begins, and I don't want to get into all that. I'm just showing the subjective nature of all this, including life. Liberty, what does it mean to be free? Do I have the right in my freedom to interfere with the freedom of somebody else's, okay, somebody else's freedom? And pursuit of happiness, I think, best illustrates this. What will make me happy and what makes another person happy are two very different things, subjective. So we all have these subjective goals that we can boil up into life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But how are we going to make sure that happens? Well, at that point, we come up with objective laws and rules that protect those subjective ideas. We say we shouldn't murder people because we're protecting the right to life. We shouldn't enslave people because then everybody has a right to liberty. It took a while for the founding fathers to catch up with their own morality, but that's pretty much true of anybody who comes up with a new idea. What it means to pursue people's happiness. So we create rules like don't steal people's stuff, don't lie about people if it's not true. We create these moral standards, and a lot of morality isn't just the objective standards that we create in law, but there's this whole subjective cultural morality that we all live in. Okay, our culture has a lot of influence on what we consider moral. to be right. And so we come up with objective rules, objective standards, virtues that people follow. What criteria in society are we going to shame people with or gossip about people with? Gossip is a great control mechanism for morality. Probably one of the first things that led to morality, if you read some of the people on moral origins. Why? Why about that? Because humans are a social species, and all social species develop morality out of necessity that allows them to survive and prosper. Morality is ultimately a very practical necessity for us as humans because we need to survive and live better. Okay. And so the more I studied more philosophies, the more I realized how subjective they are. Okay. There's subjective to interpretation. Even the law, when we create the laws are subjective to interpretation because of all this stuff. Someone, well, but that's not true of the Christian God. I'm sorry, the Christian God's laws in the Old Testament are very subject to interpretation. That's why you have so many denominations. Some of them who follow certain laws. Got the Seventh-day Adventists that cling to, the Old Testament law, and then you have others that throw that all off. Let's get tattoos and wear mixed fabrics and do all the stuff that, heck, you got people that are, Jesus paid it all, so let's run around naked and marry who we want and love who we want because it's all under grace. And we have those two extremes and a whole bunch of spectrum in between. That just shows you that your own morality is subjective, even in the Bible, because it's subject to interpretation. And that's what makes it non-objective. Objective morality wouldn't be subject to interpretation, but all morality that we seem to have is subject to interpretation. I guess this is a bonus fifth lie that atheists like to tell about, or apologists like to tell about atheists, is that we don't have any morals because we don't have God watching, or we don't have God as our moral framework. Well, first of all, I would say God's morality is just as subjective and subject to interpretation as any other moral code that I've ever seen. But I would also counter that there are tons of moral systems that do not require a God. I follow Stoicism that has some moral system to it. It's not completely my complete moral system, but you don't have to have a God. You can throw God in there if you want, but you don't have to have him to be a Stoic. And I think like Christianity, because Stoicism predates Christianity, you see a lot of Stoicism in Paul. He definitely borrows a lot of Stoic ideas. And so, there's actually a bridge in how I talk to some Christians through the Stoic ideas, because on that we can have agreement. Okay, I try to find bridges of agreement all the time. But it's a moral system that doesn't require a God. Okay. And I would say, you got to have somebody watching you or you wouldn't do the right thing. That's not true. There's plenty of examples of people that do the right thing with nobody watching. And I would say that that's a greater morality. I think there was I can't remember the rabbi's name, but he made the statement, because somebody asked him why there were atheists. And his response is brilliant and actually very flattering to the atheists, because he says, so that you can see that without fear of punishment or hope of reward or some belief that somebody is watching it, there are people in this world that do good things because it's the right thing to do. Okay? To me, that's a higher form of morality, to do the right thing whether you think somebody's watching or not. Okay, because it's the right thing to do. It's the beneficial thing to do for yourself and society, and you recognize that and you do it without whether somebody's watching or not. To me, that's a better morality. And I think the lie that's told there about atheists is twofold. Number one, if you're going to say that, please tell me that you've examined other moral systems that don't require God and found them lacking in some way, and the reason why you find them lacking. Don't just hand wave them. Okay, number one. And two, it's just not practically true. Okay, we do have moral systems. A better way to put it is, I don't think a moral system without God has as good of foundations, has better foundations than one that doesn't. Okay, you could put it that way, but don't sit there and insinuate to me that I don't have a moral code. I do. I get asked about it all the time. Okay, and I just gave an explanation. Now, that's not a complete explanation. If you still have questions, you're more than welcome to ask in the video, but there it is. A few other comments. I've had my share of theists show up here and speak in all caps, and I've had all kinds of people. Last week I talked at length in a political discussion. I'll probably do those from time to time, but I also like to talk atheism, deconversion on Rabyd Reflections here. So it's kind of my Rabyd Reflections to talk about the lies that I've heard about atheists this week from Apologists. So, and in particular one, but I've heard a lot of these several times, that people have been engaging. But in my own life, I'm doing better. Somebody told me I should get therapy. I get therapy twice a month for some of the trauma that I've experienced, both in the church and out of it, plus coming to grips with my own deconversion. And so my therapist helps me deal with that. After 40 years of being something, you have some stuff that clings to you. And I try to help people, in practical ways do that. So yes, I do therapy. And yes, I had a lot of emotional reasons to cling to my faith, and it was the rational reasons that actually won out over them. So sorry, that particular commenter was wrong. I've had, the tons of people, well, there's good evidence for this. And I said, no, it's not good evidence when you really think about it. So I guess today's lies and the moral discussion kind of covers the comments for this week. So thanks, everybody, for that. If you want to support the mission of this channel, I can always use more financial support. I'm working my way to having a better computer. I'm really wrestling with that right now. The computer I have works, but it has a lot of shortcomings that I can't do certain things with, including live stream. I want to get to, once I finish my Jim Palmer series on seeing behind the religious curtain, I'm just going to move this video, Rabyd Reflections, to Friday. If I have my computer before then those Tuesdays and Fridays will become live streams instead, and then I'll pull videos out of that. I've also been considering shorts and things like that. So getting my message out to a broader audience is always more beneficial. So, changing the YouTube algorithm and getting more of an audience from different stripes of people is always a goal. But the main goal continues to say, I'm an atheist and that's okay. And you people should not be bigoted against me or diminish me or lie about me, okay? I hope this video illustrates the purpose of this channel, which is to expose the lies of apologists when they talk about atheists and when they talk about deconversion, because they lie about both, okay? And I know it's probably more self-serving lies, but the problem is a lot of these people have, platforms and places where they have a great deal of influence, and somebody needs to stand up to them and say, you're wrong about this stuff. And I talk about other things like the Bible and stuff too, but all of it is the idea of normalizing atheism and deconversion. And for those of you deconverting, I hope I help you realize and demystify the things on an emotional, personal level for you. Because that's what I deal with on a constant basis, is this idea something that I've thought about, or is it just something I was indoctrinated with? And it's still a holdover. It's kind of the ghosts that continue to haunt me, kind of thing from my time as a theist. They're still there. I mean, like I said, 40 years, 20 years as a pastor, yeah, stuff's going to stick to you. So there's that. But there's lots of ways to support the channel. Super thanks, super chat, super stickers. I have, there's also, my PayPal link in the description. But the biggest thing is membership. Membership is, I think, the future of YouTube channels, because the ad revenue comes and goes up and down depending on whether they're holidays or not and stuff like that, and what you get paid varies all the time. But membership is something that's solid and continues to grow. So I encourage you to become a member. It only takes $2 a month to become a citizen of the Rabyd Nation, and it gives you a few perks, and then the higher levels you go, you get more perks and stuff. So thank you to all of you that have done that, to my citizens, to my Rabyd citizens, and to my tribunes. Thank you very much. You guys really motivate me to continue on in this work of normalizing atheism and normalizing deconversion. So thank you very much for all of you that do that. And as always, live your best life. You only get one go around and then it's over. There's no afterlife. So you want to take all your time, money, and opportunities and give them to yourself, to the people you love and care for, and to make this a better world. And don't waste them on the trappings of religion and faith. That's a dead end. I speak from experience, and you'll be much happier if you do. And as always, thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you next time.